Welcome to our channel. Enjoy the video.
California. The late 1960s. To most Americans, it was a time of freedom, music, and hope. Teenagers gathered at quiet lakes after sunset. Young couples drove to secluded lovers' lanes, believing they had nothing to fear. But in Northern California, someone was watching. A man whose face no one could clearly remember. A man who would soon become the most infamous unidentified serial killer in American history. His name was one he gave himself. The Zodiac. And for decades, he would outsmart investigators, terrorize an entire state, and leave behind a mystery that remains unsolved. The story begins on the night of December 20th, 1968. Just outside the small town of Benicia, California, two teenagers, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, parked their car near a quiet gravel road known as Lake Herman Road. It was supposed to be an ordinary date. The road was dark and nearly deserted. Then another car pulled up behind them. No one knows exactly what happened in the next few moments. Investigators believe the stranger forced the couple out of their vehicle at gunpoint. David Faraday was shot at close range. Betty Lou Jensen tried to run. She never made it far. The killer fired multiple shots into the darkness, striking her in the back before disappearing into the night. The murders shocked the local community. Police searched desperately for witnesses. They questioned residents. They collected shell casings. They followed every lead they could find. But nothing pointed to a suspect. The case quickly went cold. At the time, investigators believed it was an isolated tragedy. They had no idea it was only the beginning. Less than 7 months later. On the night of July 4, 1969, another young couple drove to a secluded parking area at Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo. Darlene Farron and Michael Mageau sat inside their parked car, unaware that someone had been following them. Just after midnight, a vehicle slowly pulled into the parking lot. It stopped nearby. For a brief moment, it drove away. Then, it returned. The driver stepped out carrying a flashlight. The bright beam blinded the couple through the windshield. At first, they believed it was a police officer approaching for a routine check. It wasn't. Without warning, the stranger pulled out a 9mm pistol and opened fire through the passenger side window. Bullets ripped through the vehicle. As the attacker began walking away, he suddenly turned back. Hearing signs of movement inside the car, he fired several more rounds before calmly returning to his vehicle and disappearing into the darkness. Darlene Farron died from her injuries. Against all odds, Michael Mageau survived. His testimony would become the first real description of the mysterious gunman. But it still wasn't enough to identify him. The killer had left almost no trace behind. No fingerprints that could identify him. No obvious motive. Only fear. And then, less than an hour after the shooting, a telephone rang inside the Vallejo Police Department. A calm, emotionless male voice spoke only a few chilling sentences. "I want to report a double murder. If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you will find the kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year." The caller quietly hung up. In that single phone call, police realized the horrifying truth. The murders at Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs were connected. Northern California wasn't dealing with random violence. A serial killer had just announced himself. And within weeks, he would send letters that would transform an unknown murderer into one of the most feared criminals in American history. The killer had already taken lives. But murder wasn't enough. He wanted something far more powerful. He wanted the entire country to know his name. On August 1, 1969, 3 California newspapers received nearly identical handwritten letters. Each envelope contained a shocking confession. The anonymous writer claimed responsibility for the recent murders and included details that only the real killer could have known. But there was something even more disturbing inside. Each letter contained 1/3 of a strange, encrypted message, a cipher made up of mysterious symbols, circles, triangles, and unusual characters. The writer issued a terrifying demand. If the newspapers did not print the cipher on their front pages, he threatened to go on another killing spree. Editors faced an impossible decision. Ignore the message and risk more deaths. Or publish the words of a murderer. Within days, the newspapers printed the cipher for the world to see. Thousands of people tried to crack the code. Professional cryptographers struggled. Military experts searched for patterns. Ordinary citizens spent sleepless nights studying the strange symbols. Then, unexpectedly, the breakthrough came from an ordinary married couple. Donald and Betty Harden, a schoolteacher and his wife, believed the killer's ego would be the key to solving the puzzle. Working from their home, they carefully analyzed the symbols until the message slowly revealed itself. The decoded text shocked investigators. It read, "I like killing people because it is so much fun." The message continued with disturbing claims that hunting humans was more exciting than hunting animals and suggested the victims would become his servants in the afterlife. But despite its horrifying content, the cipher revealed nothing about the killer's identity. No real name. No address. No clear clue. It was another psychological game. Then, on August 7, 1969, another letter arrived. This time, the writer began with 3 unforgettable words. "This is the Zodiac speaking." For the first time, the killer had given himself a name. From that day forward, newspapers, investigators, and the public would know him simply as the Zodiac. The letters became more frequent. Each one seemed designed to prove that he was smarter than the police. He mocked investigators. He criticized newspaper coverage. He hinted at future attacks. Every new envelope sent fear racing across California. People checked their mailboxes with anxiety. Parents kept their children indoors after dark. Young couples avoided isolated roads that had once felt safe. The Zodiac had discovered that fear could spread faster than bullets. And then, on September 27, 1969, the killer changed his method once again. Instead of attacking from the shadows with a gun, he appeared wearing a bizarre, executioner-like hood marked with a strange cross-circle symbol. What happened next would become one of the most chilling encounters in the entire Zodiac case. The world now knew the name. The Zodiac. But no one knew the face behind it. As police raced to decode every letter, the killer struck again. On September 27, 1969, college students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were enjoying a quiet afternoon near Lake Berryessa. The peaceful lakeside seemed like the last place anyone would expect danger. Then, a strange man emerged from behind the trees. He wasn't wearing ordinary clothes. He was dressed in a dark executioner-style hood that completely concealed his face. On the chest was a white cross-circle symbol, the same symbol that had appeared in the Zodiac's letters. The man calmly approached the couple. He claimed he was an escaped convict who needed money and a car to flee to Mexico. His voice was steady. His movements were controlled. Nothing about him suggested panic. Brian and Cecilia cooperated, believing they would survive if they followed his instructions. The hooded man ordered them to tie each other up. After checking the knots himself, he suddenly pulled out a long knife. Without warning, he began stabbing them repeatedly. The attack lasted only minutes. Then, just as calmly as he had arrived, the killer walked back to Brian's car. Using a black marker, he wrote the dates of his previous attacks on the car door and added one chilling word. Zodiac. It was his signature. A few hours later, the attacker called police from a nearby payphone to report the crime before disappearing once again. Miraculously, Brian Hartnell survived. His detailed account gave investigators their clearest description yet of the mysterious killer's behavior. But the mask had hidden the one thing police desperately needed. His face. 2 weeks later, the Zodiac committed what would become his final confirmed murder. On October 11, 1969, San Francisco taxi driver Paul Stine picked up a passenger in the city's busy downtown. It seemed like an ordinary fare. But when the taxi reached the quiet neighborhood of Presidio Heights, the passenger pulled out a handgun and shot Stine at point-blank range. This time, something unexpected happened. Several witnesses watched the killer leave the cab. Police officers rushed toward the area. In a tragic twist of fate, an early police broadcast mistakenly described the suspect as a black male. The witnesses had actually seen a white man. Because of that error, officers who briefly encountered a suspicious white pedestrian did not stop him. The Zodiac had slipped away, possibly just minutes from capture. Soon after, more letters arrived. To prove he was the killer, the Zodiac mailed pieces of Paul Stine's blood-stained shirt to newspapers. There could no longer be any doubt. The murderer wasn't bluffing. He was watching the investigation unfold. And he was always one step ahead. As months turned into years, hundreds of detectives worked the case. Thousands of tips poured in. Fingerprints were analyzed. Handwriting experts compared letters. Suspects came and went. Some investigators believed they had found the Zodiac. Others completely disagreed. Every promising lead eventually reached the same frustrating conclusion. There was never enough evidence to prove who he really was. The Zodiac had created more than a series of murders. He had created one of the greatest criminal mysteries in American history. More than half a century has passed. The world has changed. Technology has transformed criminal investigations. DNA has solved cases once thought impossible. Artificial intelligence can analyze evidence in seconds. Yet one mystery continues to defy them all. Who was the Zodiac Killer? For decades, investigators revisited the case again and again. Boxes filled with evidence were reopened. Old fingerprints were re-examined. New forensic techniques were applied to decades-old letters. Every breakthrough created hope. And every hope ended the same way. Without a definitive answer. Then, in December 2020, an international team of codebreakers achieved what many believed was impossible. They solved the Zodiac's infamous 340-character cipher, a message that had remained unsolved for 51 years. The world waited, expecting the cipher to reveal the killer's identity. It didn't. Instead, the decoded message mocked investigators once again. The Zodiac claimed he was not afraid of the gas chamber because, in his twisted mind, his victims would become his servants in the afterlife. Even after half a century, he was still playing psychological games. Over the years, dozens of suspects have been proposed. Some were investigated for decades. Others were identified by amateur detectives convinced they had solved the mystery. One of the most famous suspects was Arthur Lee Allen, a man whose behavior and background raised serious suspicions. But despite years of investigation, no fingerprint, DNA sample, handwriting analysis, or physical evidence ever conclusively proved he was the Zodiac Killer. Other names surfaced. Other theories gained attention. Each promised to finally solve the case. And each eventually fell apart under closer examination. Today, the FBI considers the investigation inactive, while local law enforcement agencies retain their case files and continue to accept new information if credible evidence emerges. The Zodiac Killer has never been officially identified. His confirmed victims remain only a fraction of the murders some believe he committed. His true identity, his real motive, and perhaps even the total number of his victims, may never be known. The Zodiac didn't just terrorize Northern California. He changed the way serial killers interacted with the media. He showed how fear could spread through newspapers, coded messages, and public attention. His letters became as infamous as his crimes. And his mystery became part of American history. Somewhere, the truth may still exist. Hidden inside an overlooked document. A forgotten piece of evidence. Or a DNA sample waiting for future technology. Until that day arrives, the Zodiac Killer remains America's smartest uncaught murderer.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss our next video. See you in the next one.